The political parties that were traditionally seen as the ones defending the constitution, they have surrendered.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this episode of Pildat's podcast. Today we have with us Dr. Ammar Ali Jan, who's an academic, an educator and a politician, and a co-founding member of the Hukuk-e-Khalq movement, which is a left-wing political party in Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum Ammar, welcome to our podcast.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Ammar, I want to start talking about how you've gotten into the political space, because we want to talk mainly about youth today and how youth can organize and become involved in politics. And I think you're a good kind of figure for them to look at. So how was this something you always planned? Yeah, it just kind of happened.
Well, I mean, I was interested in politics as a student. So I was studying at the University of Texas for my undergrad, and we saw a lot of protests happening back in the day. These were Bush years, so ancient times. When we had the war on terror at its peak, you had Islamophobia, you had anti-immigrant phobia, which all of these things continue even today at many levels. And I was very impressed by professors, academics, activists, students who spoke out against the injustice that was happening to immigrants, to Muslims, to other minorities. And that kind of got me interested in who these people were. For example, there was a lot of organizing happening around Palestine at the time. And I realized that people who were at the forefront of this organizing were not just Palestinians, but also a lot of Jews. And that just got me interested in what is the ideological basis for this. And that's how I got introduced to the left, to leftist ideas, to progressive ideas, which basically means that you actually can overcome the limitations of race, religion, culture, nationality in pursuit of justice. I mean, that's the overall idea. And that brought me to the left. I moved back to Pakistan. I was in and out for my master's. I went back to the US, and then eventually I ended up doing my PhD in the UK. And I became more and more interested in exploring these themes. In fact, my PhD eventually was on the history of the communist movement in colonial India and South Asia. And by the time I came back to Pakistan, I was supporting political groups, but I was not a very active member of any organization. And I decided to come back, and I decided to teach at a public sector university. So first it was Government College, then Punjab University, and then former Christian College, which is a private university. And I realized that things had changed in Pakistan quite a bit. This was the time of Operation Zarb-e-Azb. This was a time when there was this overall theme in the media, in government circles, that there's a fifth generation war happening in Pakistan, and universities are the front lines of that, which is basically meant that universities are brainwashing students into anti-Pakistan, anti-state narratives. And I kind of got thrust into the middle of that debate when I started supporting students from the peripheries, for example, Pashtun students on campus, Baloch students on campus, women fighting against harassment. This is also the time when the Me Too movement was rising. This is 2017, 18. So that got me into trouble with university administrators. Now, I wasn't someone who was, shouting slogans or anything. These were things that were already happening on campuses. People were fighting back. And just like I saw a lot of sympathetic professors in the US, I wanted to be like them, but they didn't have an Operation Zarb-e-Azb happening in the US. And I think I kind of probably, the analogies I was making were probably wrong. So I wanted to be a public intellectual who could help. And what really then got me into trouble was supporting Manzoor Pashtun. Basically not supporting necessarily his entire narrative, but supporting his right to air his narrative. And that got me fired from Punjab University and later FC College. And the doors of academia were shut for me. And that kind of ended my academic career. In the meanwhile, we had created a good chunk of students and civil society activists who were willing to support us. And they became the nucleus for a new movement called the Haqooq-e-Khalq movement, and we dedicated ourselves to working on civic rights, working on rights that were guaranteed in the Constitution, and that's how I am where I am.
That's very interesting, and I have a lot of follow-up questions on that. But first, I kind of want to, now take a wider lens, look at the big picture. Is it only a Pakistan problem that we have, so few youth in politics? Like, I feel like if you look at the National Assembly, it looks like everyone there is 50 plus, if not 70 plus, right? And while our population is 64% youth. So is this a Pakistan problem or is this a worldwide problem?
I think it's a worldwide problem at the moment. So you can see in the US, all the candidates are, leading candidates are either in the late 70s or early 80s. For a very long time, the youth was depoliticized. There was an entire kind of machinery, ideological machinery in the 90s to 2000s that said politics is a bad thing. If you want to do something good, go to NGOs, do charity
work.
This
is a global thing? Because I know this happened in Pakistan, but I didn't know
it was something that was pushed by the IMF and World Bank after the Washington Consensus in 1980. This was a response to the revolutionary movements in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Once they were defeated in one country after another, which has its own sordid history, CIA coups, civil wars, overthrow of governments, bombing campaigns against any country that stood up, sanctions. So it was about killing hope, killing any idea of an alternative, and then proposing that instead of thinking about big things, systemic changes, political changes, all you should think about is how can I make a difference around myself, some water issues, some local education, all of these things very noble. But the sinister part of this entire narrative was leave the big issues to the big boys. IMF, World Bank will deal with the big issues. NATO will deal with the big issues. CIA will deal with the big issues. You just focus on your mahalla.
Yeah.
And that kind of depoliticized a whole generation. In Pakistan, we had a bigger problem that we did not even have those nurseries from where new leadership could emerge. So you had no student unions, which have been banned since 1984 by General Ziaul-Haq, and you don't even have consistent local government elections.
Exactly.
So those are look at Zohran Mamdani right now, right? He won the mayoral elections. Well, guess what? In Pakistan, we don't have mayoral elections, right? So he could not have entered the democratic machine easily otherwise. If it was a senatorial election or it was something at that level, it would have been far more difficult in the first past the post system. But it's precisely a local government and local government issues that allowed him that space. So that was taken away from people in Pakistan. And what that meant is that in the National Assembly, if you look at the young people right now, let's say by young I mean under 45, let's say, in the political sense, young.
Yes.
You'll be even more depressed because these are people who are reproducing the old. They've not come out of a process. They've not come out of grassroots movement. They've not come out of any kind of a struggle. It's basically they've come through a process through which their fathers did, their grandfathers did, and since the British kind of system of patronage was established for these political families, they're beneficiaries of that system of like 150 years. So there's nothing inspiring about that. So it's one question is bringing youth, but also linking it to actual grassroots movements. And for that in Pakistan, before we can produce someone like Zohran Mamdani, we need the fight to open up space for those institutions that can allow someone to emerge, like local governments.
Local governments is one big thing where we see, like Punjab still doesn't have a local government. It's been years. Why do you think it seems like politicians are kind of scared of allowing local governments to emerge when really it's been like military dictators have been okay with it, but politicians have an issue with that? Yeah. What are they scared of?
Both do this for their own sinister reasons. The politicians have this problem that they want to control the development funds. They fear that if they start doing what they're supposed to do, which is legislation, because they're lawmakers. They're not people who are responsible or should be responsible for whether gas is coming to someone's house or a road is being built or not. These are issues that the local government should think about. And National Assembly should be thinking about child marriage law, should be thinking about foreign policy, should be thinking about bigger issues that concern the people of Pakistan and the orientation of the country. But they want to monopolize power. Every person at the local level wants to be a Chaudhry, a feudal. And devolution means you cannot do that. Now, the military dictatorships do the reverse. They suspend the parliaments so that politics is then reduced only to the level of the mahalla, so that the big questions are no longer open to public accountability or any kind of a democratic pressure. And all those aspirations or angers or resentment that people have, they should just be directed to localized issues. So both of them are wrong. We need the parliament to do what the parliament is supposed to do. We need the local government to do what they're supposed to do. And then we need a democratic infrastructure, trade unions in factories and workplaces, Kisan committees among farmers, women's organizations that are recognized by the state, and student unions in universities. Without this democratic infrastructure, you can have an elite-led democracy, which is what Pakistan has become. But you will not have the democratization of society, which means you will not actually develop a mechanism for airing and resolving grievances, nor will you allow new leadership to emerge.
I want to ask you a little bit about this grassroots organizing, because I feel like young people are very open to this idea of, or well, they're more open, more receptive to the idea of student unions, trade unions, unions in general. But if you look at the older generation who actually has experienced them, or they say they've experienced them, they're very resistant to the idea, and they always paint it as violent mobs, basically. Okay, you guys don't know what we went through when we were in universities. We were like terrorized by mobs. Same goes for business owners. They talk about trade unions like that. How do you kind of respond to those allegations?
Well, I think most of them are doing well in their lives. Those who say we were terrorized, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they've seen what's happening on campuses right now. Pakistan is a difficult place, whether you have unions or you don't have unions. This idea that unions were the reason for all kinds of violence, I think it's totally kind of mischaracterizes our past. For example, when we had unions, we look at our colleges, our medical colleges. They were considered the best in the region. All of them had unions, elected student unions. And we had students coming from Africa, from Arab region, Iran. People used to come to Pakistan to study, all the way from Karachi to Lahore to Peshawar, which was a very favorite destination of a lot of Arab students at the time. Similarly, UET, world-class university, Punjab University, way better than what it is right now. It was way better back then. All these colleges, universities had unions. There were two problems. One is those who were upset. I think unions are meant to make them upset, because if you demand your rights, some people are going to get upset, particularly those at the top, those who are running the administration. If someone, for example, says there's a fee hike that we cannot afford and organizes students around that, that's going to upset all those who want that fee hike. If someone talks about harassment, it's going to upset a lot of people who don't want that issue to come up. If someone talks about political issues that concern people, that's going to upset a lot of people, including the state. So that's the number one point. You know, those protests that were done, and the same's true with trade unions. Of course, business owners don't like trade unions, right? Like, it kind of reduces their profit margins. If you want minimum wage for the workers, if you want to push for safety at work, that requires investment. So it takes a part of the investment from business owners towards ordinary people. Now, those are partisan issues. Do we support that? Do we not support that? Some people don't support that because they're on the side of business. Others support that who are on the side of workers. This is an actual division in society. And at least the least we can agree upon is that both sides should have some representation. The second point is there is no democratic movement in Pakistan or in our region without the student movement. Beginning from Bhagat Singh's actions as a student leader to the Pakistan movement, where the Muslim League, MSF, played a central role in mobilizing the youth. The urban constituencies of India could not have been won by the Muslim League without the MSF. So those were very, very important. And Jinnah gave a lot of attention to MSF and to student organizing. And we would not have had democracy in Pakistan had it not been for the student movement of 68, 69. Which was a massive movement that overthrew the Ayyub dictatorship and forced General Zia to hold elections in 1970. This was a student-led revolt. It's incredible that the constitution of Pakistan that was formed after a bitter struggle by students, student leaders, that constitution now no longer is guaranteeing democracy for those very students that enable the very possibility for that constitution to emerge. So that's number two. There's no democracy without without understanding the history of student unions. The third issue in this is that those who say that they've eliminated student politics after eliminating student unions are lying, because there's politics at every level on campuses. You have the vice chancellor that's posted based on politics. You have politics amongst clerks, amongst the faculty, and even the state, including agencies, are involved in universities. Everybody is doing politics. The only politics that's been banned is the politics of resistance, the politics of students, who are supposed to be the main stakeholders of any education system. So their politics is not allowed. All other unions are operating in campuses. Right.
Can students really find hope in these, like you said, 68, 69, my students they did a lot of organizing and they really made some changes. But today, I feel like the youth is really disillusioned, not only because, student unions are banned, there's so much surveillance. Really, we've become, not we alone, but the whole world has become a set of surveillance states where you're constantly being monitored by, up social media, by what are you doing, what are you saying on campus, everything is surveilled. So they feel kind of trapped. And then we have to kind of acknowledge that a lot of youth in Pakistan were with Imran Khan and they did try to rise up. And then they feel like they failed and there's no point, is the kind of feeling that a lot of, especially urban youth, I feel have. So where do they go with that disillusionment?
Well, I mean, they say Mayusi haram hai. There's a reason for that. I think people first should give themselves a lot more credit for what they've achieved. We are a country that foreign powers very quickly designated as a kind of, a Gulf monarchy or an Arab dictatorship, which meant that in the 50s, when we signed the Cito-Cento Pacts, it was decided that there will be no civil society here. This will be a totally top-down country. There will be military dictatorship, very little women's rights. Initially we had these big groups led by Fatma Jinnah and Rana Liaquat Ali Khan and others who were sidelined very quickly. So this was supposed to be a far more conservative and closed society than what it is today. The fact that even you and I are even having this conversation, and there are a lot of people on social media, if you compare our social media, despite all the restrictions with a lot of other countries, our people don't spare anyone. This is one of the most impatient populations in the globe. We've never had a dictator who can last for more than 10 years, despite US backing. This is very different from the Arab world.
Very optimistic way of looking at things.
Yeah, I mean, we're too impatient and we love chaos a lot, and it's not true that people have accepted defeat in that sense. I do realize and I do acknowledge that people say that a lot because people have expectations that get frustrated, and the expectations should be there. If they're not frustrated, if anybody is is assimilated into this system and is satisfied with the system, that would be a bigger concern for me. If someone says the things are great, which some people do and others mock them. So there is this struggle to do something better, but what people have achieved is remarkable in terms of, we have a constitution, we had to suffer a military operation, separation of the eastern wing to achieve that. Then during Zia's time, we had over 80,000 political prisoners, including a lot of women. We had people who suffered torture, people who were exiled. Yet they did not give up on the idea of Pakistan. They did not give up on the idea of democracy. Then the Musharraf era people fought back. People are fighting back even now. I don't think that the youth has given up. The PTI supporters, they haven't fully given up. Social media is one indicator. If they have elections again today, whether one likes PTI or not is a separate thing, but if there are elections today, they will mobilize again very quickly. And my hunch is that they'll be able to surprise a lot of people, just like last year in the elections. So there is that possibility. But what's required, of course, is a program, a political program, a strategic orientation that can bring together this entire energy that's there, that the state has not been able to crush, that the ruling elites have not been able to crush. It's there, it just needs to be, there needs to be convergence through a political program and a strategic orientation, and we can do miracles. That's my absolute belief.
And a lot of people now are saying, just to further kind of push back, that would, I feel like, really crush the youth, is that, how the hybrid regime has now become a accepted fact. In the start, it was like, oh, this new phrase, but now it's just reality. A lot of people are now talking about formalizing it. And, that could mean constitutional cover, it could mean making new rules, anything. What do you think about that? What kind of blow will that be?
It's been tried many times in the past as well, and they can do it. The 26th Amendment is one way to do it. They're trying to bring the 27th Amendment. I think all of it will eventually get reversed because there's no legitimacy. You can't do this without legitimacy. If there was, let's say, a popular uprising that wanted a more central government, which has happened in third world countries, then there's energy. There's some kind of... Iran is one example, right? It's in many ways a socially and particularly conservative society or conservative state, but with a lot of revolutionary passion behind it, right? So you have, it stems out of 1979, an uprising. We have no such uprising. We basically have rigging, right?
Yeah.
Which means that the whole thing is a facade, and it will not be sustainable even if they do that.
Perhaps a lot less homogenous than a lot of the countries where centralized systems succeed.
Yes, there's that as well, and just the fact that there's no bottom-up support for that kind of a thing right now. Even in the center, look at Punjab. If they hold free and fair elections in Punjab, none of this will survive, what we see right now. So there is a crisis of legitimacy, which is a very serious crisis. And if they formalize it, it won't really matter. And surveillance, in any case, I think in a country like Pakistan, what will they find if let's say if they're, my friends and they're always advising me to be careful with what I say on the phone, and I'm never careful because I'm like, if someone is listening, it's good, they'll at least learn something, because I'm not like planning any kind of attack or anything, right? It's just the challenge to the current regime and generally to the regimes in Pakistan is not that there's some kind of a plot that people are making to storm the palace, right? It's more that people are like, we don't like them.
Yeah.
But that people are already saying on Twitter, on Insta, on any social media platform that you can see. So I think they can try, they will try, but it's a country of 250 million people. It's not going to work out, and eventually the bigger task for us, the bigger crisis for us, is that the political parties that were traditionally seen as the ones defending the constitution, they have surrendered. They've surrendered because their economic and political interests no longer give them any reason to fight back. And we need an organization, a formation that can bring people together to fight back. Political parties should be the weapons of the people. They should be the weapons that people use in their struggles against the status quo. And when that no longer is the case, then you have a crisis of political parties, which can then lead to new formations, which is happening all over the world.
And we do have a crisis in Pakistan of the legitimacy of a lot of current political parties. People, and especially a lot of young people, again, are fed up with the system. If you look at governance in Pakistan, it's really in shambles. The economy is in shambles. 61% of people don't have access to safe drinking water.
Right.
Very basic requirements are not being met by either military dictatorships or political parties. In this kind of scenario, what kind of vision does the left offer in Pakistan, and is it viable in the kind of global system of capitalism that we exist in?
Yeah. So basically, all over the world, you're seeing a crisis of capitalism intensifying. In England, I don't know if you just heard, Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana have just announced breaking from the Labour Party, which is great news, I think. Zoran Mamdani, God bless him, I don't think he's going to be able to survive the Democratic Party for too long, because the Democratic Party is viciously attacking him. They cannot stand someone who has principles, someone who's willing to fight for the people, someone who has a vision. They want politics to be completely subsumed under the interests of billionaires. And this is a crisis that is intensifying everywhere. These are more stable countries than Pakistan, of course, right? And there you have a very serious crisis where a city like New York has moved towards the left. This is because people are simply revolting against this physical exhaustion. People are working extremely hard. They can't pay their rents. They can't pay the tuition for their children. They can't buy groceries. These are the kinds of problems that are being witnessed in a place like New York. In Pakistan, all of this gets multiplied. If you see that situation, I think there's a very strong case to be made about the failure of capitalism. Now, the failure of capitalism is not equal to the collapse of capitalism. It is failing a large majority of people, but the argument that's given in favor of capitalism is often that it is still there. But this is an argument that was given for feudalism for 500 years, 600 years, until it was not there, right? And capitalism in that sense has been there only for about 200 years. And someday it will not be there, inshallah. And then it will be part of the museum of the horrors of human history. And that's where I think a lot of people are seeing things move. In Pakistan, we've had a very glorious history of the left. I mean, there's tracing from the joint struggle for independence in which Bhagat Singh and others played a very important role. But also, very few people know that in the Pakistan movement, the left played a very important role. The manifesto of the Muslim League was written by Daniel Latifi, who was a communist, and he wrote the manifesto in 1944. This is for the 46 elections. And 46 is the elections in which the Muslim League won, which became the basis for the creation of Pakistan in 47. And then the earliest kind of thinkers who were fighting for the sovereignty of Pakistan included Faiz Ahmad Faiz, who was, again, a man of the left, Habib Jala, Major Isaac, Mia Iftikharuddin, all very interesting figures. Then Maulana Bhashani, who was a Maulana and a socialist. So that this entire propaganda that this is against Islam was again something that began with General Ziaul Haq, who himself was very close to the US. It was very much a US sponsored propaganda. This entire history is what allowed for the emergence of the democratic movement in 68, 69, with National Student Federation playing a very important role, again a left-wing group, which became the basis for the Constitution of Pakistan in 73. So we have that entire history. It's been destroyed in the 80s, 90s.
I was going to say, you haven't mentioned the part where socialism was in power, which a lot of Pakistanis don't remember in very glorious terms. Like, I mean, Bhutto's government and the policies of nationalization and all of that. So how do you think the left now is presenting different alternatives from that?
I mean, I'm very sympathetic to Bhutto, and I do think Bhutto's he still remains a very popular figure. I mean, in a survey, if you do any kind of a survey of who the popular figures are, he remains very, very popular, particularly among the poor. I mean, you see, left is a partisan position as well. So it will differ. If you talk about nationalization to workers, it'll appear completely different to what it will appear to the businessmen. And there's a very good interview of Ammar Ali recently, who actually really admired Bhutto, and I didn't know that. And it's a very interesting interview that he gave to Jugnu Mohsin, where he talks about how Bhutto was very serious about industrialization. And this is again something that Kaisa Bengali Saab has written a lot as well, that our industries had completely collapsed in 71. This was not, this is again a narrative of the 80s that General Zia inspired, that our industries we were about to become South Korea, and then nationalization happened. That's not what happened. In 71, the industries were destroyed, the economy was destroyed after the war with East Pakistan. In any case, 80% of our economy was being run from East Pakistan. Nationalization actually nationalized loss-making enterprises. So it kind of saved those industries that they were planning to end, and there was fear of capital flight. Anyway, I think Bhutto Saab made a lot of mistakes as well, and we don't, when we look at historical characters, they are in their context, we're in our own context. Our context is that there is a massive redistribution of wealth happening from the elites to the poor. This has been the case since the 80s. Actually, the Bhutto era was the last era where there was redistribution on the other side, where incomes of ordinary people rose. That's why he would, of course, get the votes as well. Since then, it's been the other way. Our main criteria is like 4 or 5 major points. Is that number one, we need a plan for reindustrialization of Pakistan. This plotification of Pakistan, the only industry that we have now is housing. Yeah. Right? Yeah. This is not an industry. This is basically what they're doing is they're getting all these loans from abroad. They're injecting them in real estate. Real estate does not produce any kind of earnings for the country. You can't export corner plots, right? And then when you have to return the money, you basically, what do? You privatize, you increase taxes on ordinary people, you decrease spending on health, on education, and that's how you return the money. So basically, you're sacrificing the people for the luxuries of the elite. That's what's happening. We need to end that, and we need an industrial plan, working with our industrialists who are serious about making industry rather than like gambling, which is what's been happening for the last 30 years. Which also means controlling finance and making sure that's productive, much like what China does. Second is that the way we make our budget, it has to be geared towards lifting people out of poverty, which means improving social indicators, spending more on health, on education, on job creation, on water. You mentioned 61% of people don't have access to safe drinking water. Those are the things that require attention. Third is we need to expand the sphere of democratization, which again, there's no commitment to that. The left is more inclined towards that because the left can only survive in an atmosphere that is more democratic. The more authoritarian Pakistan becomes, our chances of survival reduce. So we have a natural interest in the democratization of our public sphere in a way that many other political figures don't. And then fourth, we need social reform, urgent social reform for minorities in Pakistan, for women in Pakistan, for trans people, for all kinds of groups whose capacities we've never utilized properly as a people, as a country. This is a huge, other than being a moral catastrophe, it's also a huge waste of our resources that our most talented people are not included into the system. And finally, independent foreign policy. From the very beginning, from the 1950s, the left has been saying we need to have an independent foreign policy. This is the time when our leaders were signing Cito-Cento pacts, joining the American camp, and our elders said it's a mistake, don't do it. Protect Pakistan's sovereignty and independence, because that's the only way you can develop. By aligning ourselves with the US, I think we lost out on a lot. And I think now it's time for a more independent foreign policy. So those are the major pillars that the left can do. And one more that I'll add, which is very unique to our moment, that's environment, which is essential. I mean, our city, Lahore, is destroyed because of smog, and this again is a man-made crisis. We just had an amazing movement in Sindh against the Six Canal project, led by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto Jr., who's another very interesting emerging leader of the left. He's moved in that direction. And ecology is very central, because the next frontier for capitalism is the destruction of our habitat in order to make profits, and the people have to fight back.
How do you see, like, this is a very ambitious kind of governance agenda of basically reprioritizing our spending towards development. How do you envision that happening within the kind of limits set by the IMF, which is a reality, right? Like, in the current world, we don't have any debt relief. We have to pay our debts. So what is your thinking around that?
I think one has to negotiate hard. That's number one. One has to look for alternative sources of financing, which I think we haven't done enough due to political pressure. BRICS is emerging, the other possibilities emerging. A lot of countries are now hedging their bets on different possibilities, and I think that needs to happen. The most important thing, in my opinion, is that we need a plan. I'm not saying we say no to IMF 100% or no to the US 100%. Any kind of a transition is a transition. But for a transition to happen, you need to have a plan. Right now, the plan is, even if you're getting money from the IMF, where's that money going? People of Pakistan are repaying the loans that never reached them. It's not just corruption, which is the problem, although that's a big part of it. It's also even if the system was not corrupt, the way it's designed is destructive. It's in real estate. It's in, the money is being made in IPPs. The money is being made through sugar cartels, what we call sugar mafias, or wheat cartels. This is not productive. This is basically the ordinary people are incurring the costs basically what you're doing is speculation. And you can do the speculation because you have a lot of monopoly, not only in the economic sphere, but in the political sphere as well. The sugar mafia is very strong in political parties. The land mafia is strong in both political parties and the establishment. Same with IPPs. This is something that was pushed on Pakistan. It makes no economic sense. But a lot of people have made a lot of money from our pockets. And all of that has to be resisted. So once you have a plan for generating enough productive investments, so that then you can generate enough earnings to start moving out of the IMF, then you can realistically say that we're going in a direction that will someday leave the IMF behind. In the current model, which is simply about cutting people down to size, cutting institutions down to size, one, our debt burden is not going to increase. This time we paid 46% of our budget was allocated to repaying loans. 46%. And this is not just Pakistan. Globally, the average is 42% for the global south.
Wow.
This is unsustainable. It's not reducing the debt burden. It's not even, it's not helping our economies. It's not helping the poor. It's basically a Ponzi scheme by the financial elites in the global north and our own political and military elites. And this is a Ponzi scheme that people are paying a huge price for.
I have a lot of follow-up questions, but I think we should keep that for another sitting. But I just want to end on, what are like 3 things you think youth can do in Pakistan to get involved? 3 small things they can do to actually make their voice heard, become a part of solving Pakistan's governance issues.
I think one is people should start reading again. That's number one. I think there's a lot of ideological fog. We think we see reality, but reality is mediated by someone. And don't trust what you see. It's always how elements are brought together is how reality is constructed, and often heroes will appear as villains and villains as heroes if you just simply hear it from others or see CNN or BBC or any of these, or Pakistani channels for that matter. So reading is an antidote. Read, and kind of develop your own lens to understanding things. Second, very broadly speaking, connect to the masses. That doesn't necessarily mean joining a political party. There are so many ways in which you can connect to the masses. And I'd say that because the way our cities, our social lives are structured, we're in silos. Gated communities and housing societies have created a certain, and I'm assuming because we're speaking in English, that's the audience that'll be listening to us. It has cut us off from the rest of Pakistan. And this kind of separation that's happening, I call it like the most successful separatist movement in Pakistan. It's the separatist movement of elites who separate themselves from the rest of society, and it's evident in culture, language, where they live, what they eat.
And for class apartheid.
It is a very strong class apartheid, but young people, because they're optimistic, they're idealistic, they can overcome that. It's not criminal to be born in a certain family, right? But it is criminal not to try to give back to society. And what's important is not where you've come from, but where you want to go and what you want to do and who all you connect. So connect with the masses, which can include working with charities, working at hospital, offering support to NGOs, charities, or any other kind of an organization, which may not be directly political, but this will give them an experience that will be invaluable. And finally, consider joining politics. Definitely consider joining politics. It doesn't matter whether you can immediately win or not. We contested elections last time. We didn't think we'll get any votes. We got what we did, but it was very, very important to say, look, we're not going to leave the field open to the other side and just sit back and then complain. We will fight. Once you lose, you fight second time, third time. You must keep fighting, and someday you will create the conditions for Zohran Mamdani's to arrive, right? Zohran Mamdani or any kind of a revolutionary figure in history appears out of the struggle and blood and tears of thousands and thousands of people who've come before that to create those conditions. Be the people who create conditions for history to emerge. And I think this generation is has so much discontent in it, rightly so. If it's channeled in the right way, it can bring a political revolution in Pakistan and elsewhere.
That's really inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ammar.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned.